from near to Bin Jawad in the west of Libya. And there's embarrassment for Britain after several members of its special forces were captured by the opposition in eastern Libya. More on that now from Felicity Barr in London. Felicity.
Thanks, Adrian. Yes, it's understood at the moment that the soldiers were there with a diplomatic mission and they were trying to make contact with the anti-Gaddafi forces, but it's not yet clear how they ended up being detained by the very people, of course, they were supposed to be befriending. We can get the latest now from AlJazeera's Rory Challens. He joins us outside the Prime Minister's office there in Downing Street in London. Rory, what more do you know about what actually happened to these men?
Well, we know that they were with a diplomat and they were trying to make diplomatic contact with some of the rebel leaders in the east of Libya. It's thought that they were snatched just outside of Benghazi, somewhere in the desert there, and now they're being held in the city of Benghazi itself. The rebels have come forward and said, yes, we do have these men. We took them because we didn't really know whether they were friends or foes, and so it was safest for us to pick them up and take them with us. The British government have come out and said very little indeed about it, which is unsurprising because this is a special forces mission, it seems, and the British government hardly ever, if ever, comments on the special forces missions. The SAS is always surrounded in secrecy here, and they will only say something if it's in PR interests once the mission has been wrapped up. But we did hear from both the Defence Minister, Liam Fox, and William Hague, the Foreign Secretary, earlier on today.
I can confirm there is a small British diplomatic team in Benghazi. We are in contact with them. It's not appropriate to say anything more about it at the moment. We are in contact with people who are on the opposition side in Libya. I've spoken to a couple of their leaders over the last few days.
Now, despite all that diplomatic effort that it seems the British government has gone to, it seems that this has been one whole big misunderstanding and really has been very embarrassing. And indeed, it's been embarrassing for the British government because no government likes anything that it does in secret to come out into the open, and that's exactly what's happened here. It's also very embarrassing for the SAS. The SAS are supposed to be some of the most highly trained special forces personnel in the world, and for them to have been taken captive by a few rebels with Kalashnikovs won't look very good on them at all. They like doing things in secrecy, they like doing things effectively, and that hasn't happened here. It's also not particularly good for the rebels because if the British government has been reaching out this hand of diplomatic friendship to them, it looks like they've just bitten that hand, and they probably won't have wanted that to happen.
Rory Challens in Downing Street, thanks for that. And with me now in the studio is Justin Crump. He's an intelligence expert himself who served in the British Armed Forces. Justin, I guess there's no real surprise that British Special Forces would be in Libya at the moment.
No, none at all, really, and I think they're far from alone. I understand at least American Special Forces and also Egyptian commandos are active, all with the same sort of task, really, which is find out what's going on, who's in charge. I think some concern as well around the potential jihadist sort of nexus in East Libya. And I think because of that, I mean, everyone will be having a look to try and see what's going on.
It's strange because I've heard reports, media reports, that these guys actually arrived, James Bond style, if you like, in a helicopter in the middle of the night on Friday. Bearing in mind, of course, the Benghazi rebels do have anti-aircraft guns. Isn't that a bit of a foolish way to arrive on some sort of secret mission? I mean, clearly they're looking out at the moment for Gaddafi military in the air.
The whole thing's a risk balance, isn't it? And I think with the confusion in the East, they obviously thought the risk of going in through the front door, if you like, was too high, and so a sort of covert insertion was the right way to do this.
Can you not do it covertly over land, though? I mean, HMS Cumberland is stationed just off the port of Benghazi. Surely they could have taken them off Cumberland, and I mean, it's not exactly far from Benghazi port to Benghazi itself.
It's not. I guess, you know, it's the visibility issue, and you talk about, you know, a secret mission. I think, obviously, Cumberland was under a lot of media and other observation when she was in port, and it wouldn't have been appropriate at the time. You know, it's a risk balance, and between driving over the border or flying in at low level, actually, you know, the pilots are trained to do this sort of mission, so actually that's probably comparatively not very risky, if you believe in the training. And to pick up an earlier point, actually, to say that the patrol surrendered without a shot, it's probably entirely the right thing to do. They're there to make contact, they're not there to start a further war or, you know, have a firefight with 6 people dead or anything like that. They're actually there, you know, as an escort to the diplomat. You know, their role is just to get him safely to where he needs to go, and I think having a shootout really wouldn't be the safest way. It's really a close protection team. So arguably they've achieved what they were trying to do, and it sounds like the fellow we've sent is in contact with the Libyans, or elements of the sort of rebel government, if you like.
Perhaps not the way they would have wanted to do so, and presumably, well, we're told they're being held and there will be some sort of talks going on, but we gather, and I think you gather yourself from your sources, that these men are unharmed.
That's what I gather. You know, but it is embarrassing, and what it opens things up to is that the anti-Western sentiment within the new Libyan sort of nexuses that are growing in that side of the country, they can play this now. There's a lot of opposition to Western intervention, I think, after what happened in Iraq. It's a very sensitive issue, like we've seen with the no-fly zone discussions. And I think with all that together, you know, this is awkward. It
is interesting, isn't it? Because actually a lot of the rebels that we've spoken to have called for the no-fly zone. They actually want that to happen, but they don't want what they term as foreign boots on Libyan soil. And I guess that is where the SAS have run into trouble. Effectively,
but I mean, it's unsurprising if you're going to send someone. You know, you need to send an escort. I mean, I think if the oil companies, who are probably equally concerned about what's going on, wanted to send a senior person in, or even a junior person, to find out who was in power and try and open negotiations, they'd still send a team from, you know, a major security firm to guard that person. So this is just exactly the same on a state level. I mean, they weren't there to do anything, I think, other than get the guy safely to whoever he needed to meet, or find out who the hell it was.
Indeed. Justin Crump, fascinating stuff. Thanks so much for coming in to explain that to us. Well, 3 Bangladeshi men being evacuated from Libya have died after jumping off a ferry that was bound for Crete. Nearly 50 migrant workers jumped into the water, apparently to avoid being sent back to Bangladesh. At least 14 are still missing and many others are in hospital. The Greek Coast Guard, Navy ships, fishing boats and a military helicopter are scouring the waters off Crete to try to find the missing men. Meanwhile, hundreds of people are still pouring into Malta to escape the unrest in Libya. Indian evacuees have been some of the latest to arrive. More than 300 people were on board a ship being chartered by the Indian government. A number of people from Bangladesh and the Philippines were also evacuated at the same time. Right, let's go back now to Adrian to get more on the worldwide evacuation of those foreign workers from Libya. Adrian.
You talked about one nation in particular, Bangladesh there. Well, Pakistan, Felicity, is reported to have more than 18,000 workers in Libya. And the government in Islamabad is facing severe criticism over its handling of the evacuation of its nationals. Kamal Haider reports now from Islamabad.
This might be the first time these Pakistani oil workers come back home empty-handed. No presents for the family and no wages. Despite having lost everything, they're grateful to be home. Stranded at the airport for days and without food, many shared their experience of the ordeal.
The situation was very critical in Libya. We were lucky enough to save our lives.
While they praised their local Libyan employees for helping them leave, they've complained their own embassy did little to help.
We are very happy on our soil, but the government of Pakistan has done nothing for us.
Pakistani embassy officials maintain they are working with the local authorities in Tunisia, Algeria, Egypt and Turkey, and officials have been dispatched to the Libyan border to receive its citizens. As Pakistan